I'd be interested in hearing what you think are some of the keys of to sharing or defending the Christian faith in a more
Hmm.
persuasive or compelling way. Like for Christians that are listening now, what have you learned?
Well, obviously, we've already talked about the fact that there are good reasons to believe. I think there genuinely are good intellectual foundations for belief in God, for the historicity of Christianity. And, there are so many resources available now where you can look those up and learn and so on. That's kind of one leg, if you like, of the stool. But it will be a very wobbly stool if you don't have the other legs, I think. And one of those legs is certainly what we've just been talking about, which is the willingness to actually listen to the other
Yeah.
side. Because if you're not in a listener as well as someone who speaks, then you just won't get an audience. I don't think, not in today's culture. You will immediately be seen as someone who's just got an agenda to put across a certain point of view. You're a salesperson basically for your thing, and people don't like to feel like they're just evangelistic targets or whatever. So I think it's got to be relational. Sadly, we live in a social media culture which militates against that, because most of these discussions tend to take place in that format, and unfortunately it tends to just result in people getting more and more embedded in their own echo chamber, or their own perspective. It's very hard, I think, to have a genuine kind of conversation in that format. It's possible, I think some people do actually, but it's rare. So that's why I think actually a show like Unbelievable is still quite important, because it does try to model face-to-face kind of long form gracious
Right.
interaction, where you're taking the other person's perspective seriously, you're not dismissing it. And so yeah, so the third stool, third leg of the stool, as it were, is that final bit of 1 Peter 3:15, which is that classic apologetics verse: always be ready to give an answer to anyone who asks you about the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect, because the reasons you give won't mean anything or land if they're not done in this atmosphere of gentleness and respect. There's an old saying, isn't there, that you can win the argument but lose the person. And we're
Yeah.
not here to win arguments, we're here to win people. And you could lose the argument and do a better job of actually representing Christianity and making
Wow.
someone potentially want what's on offer, actually.
Yeah.
If you put them off from the outset with the way you conduct yourself and so on, then they're not going to want what's on offer. Even, no matter how good your arguments are, they're not going to want to be like you. And in
Ooh.
the end, people are a whole mixture of reasons for why they do or don't accept faith. It's very, very rarely a purely intellectual thing. There's
Right.
going to be a lot going on in someone's psychology, background, environment, and the way you conduct yourself, I think, is so a much bigger part of that than people often realize.
It's a really great reminder. It's easier said than done.